In the Central Archive of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, in Fund 3424, Inventory 1, File 4, an operational summary from the headquarters of the 30th Tank Corps, dated June 2, 1943, is kept. This document bears a purple Top Secret stamp and the original signature of the Chief of Staff, Colonel Lazovsky. In the column Availability of Materiel, the exact number is listed: 202 T-34 tanks. Before we proceed to a detailed analysis of the archival documents, combat logs, and logistical chains of this formation, subscribe to the channel. This will help the project develop and allow us to produce more accurate historical research. In January 1943, a manifesto from the workers was published in the newspaper Uralsky Rabochi. It formulated a commitment to create a tank corps beyond the state plan for defense production. Funding was provided exclusively through voluntary contributions from citizens and payroll deductions. In the Sverdlovsk region, 58 million rubles were collected. In the Chelyabinsk region, 56 million rubles. In the Molotov region, 38 million rubles. The total sum exceeded 152 million rubles. These funds were used to purchase raw materials, pay for electricity, and cover equipment depreciation, which allowed for the manufacture of the entire range of weaponry without drawing on budgetary allocations. Work collectives voluntarily worked an additional 1 to 2 hours after the end of their main shifts, increasing the overall productivity of the factories by 15 to 20%. The production cooperation was distributed among the largest industrial hubs of the Urals. Plant 183 in Nizhny Tagil allocated capacity for the assembly of 202 T-34 tanks with 76 mm F-34 guns. Armored hulls were made from 8 S-grade steel up to 45 mm thick at Uralmash in Sverdlovsk. Cast turrets were produced using the hot stamping method on a 10,000-ton press, which ensured increased shell resistance of the structure. The Chelyabinsk tractor plant manufactured 202 V234 model diesel engines with 500 horsepower. The Zlatoust instrument-making plant produced 10,200 short-bladed weapon units, NR-40 type knives. The technical parameters of these items: blade length 152 mm, width 22 mm, spine thickness 4.5 mm. The handle and scabbard were coated with black bakelite lacquer, which led to the unit being designated the Division of Black Knives in German intelligence documents. The organizational structure of the formation included the 197th Sverdlovsk Tank Brigade, the 243rd Molotov Tank Brigade, the 244th Chelyabinsk Tank Brigade, and the 30th Motor Rifle Brigade. The Corps also included the 266th Mortar Regiment, equipped with 36 120 mm mortars, the 1488th Anti-Aircraft Artillery Regiment with 24 37 mm guns, the 743rd Separate Signals Battalion, and the 248th Separate Sapper Battalion. The authorized strength of the Corps as of May 1, 1943, was 9,660 personnel. Recruitment was conducted on a strict competitive basis. For one position, 12 people applied. Out of 115,000 applications submitted, the selection commissions approved 9,660. The main selection criterion was a technical qualification of at least the 4th grade in metalworking or mechanical engineering specialties, which predetermined the high speed of mastering the materiel. When comparing the military acceptance reports of Factory 183 and the material technical supply logs of the 30th Tank Corps for May 1943, the first archival discrepancy is discovered. The factory documents record the shipment of 202 T-34 tanks, fully equipped with 9R radios. However, in the report of the Corps' Chief of Communications, Major Filipov, dated May 18, 1943, it is indicated that 12 vehicles from the 243rd Tank Brigade arrived at the training ground near Kungur without 9R transceivers and were equipped only with RSI-4 receivers. This occurred due to an under-delivery of components from the evacuated Factory 193 in Kasley. Because of this shortage, the units were forced to conduct their first tactical exercises using flag signals, which reduced command and control effectiveness by 30% during the initial stage of combat integration. The problem was eliminated by June 20, 1943, through the direct delivery of radios from the central warehouse of the People's Commissariat of Defense. The period of combat training for personnel lasted from April 15 to July 10, 1943. The standard for motor resource mileage for driver mechanics was 25 motor hours, which was 3 times higher than the average for the Red Army's reserve tank units during this period. On July 12, 1943, the Corps received a directive from the Stavka of the Supreme High Command to be included in the 4th Tank Army under the command of Lieutenant General Badanov. The formation was transferred to the Bryansk front by 18 railroad echelons. The total route length was 1,350 kilometers. The average speed of the echelons was 400 kilometers per day. Unloading was carried out at the Kotinets and Zalagosh stations under constant enemy air attacks. On July 26, 1943, at 5 hours 20 minutes, following a 40-minute artillery preparation, the Corps went on the offensive as part of the Ural Strategic Offensive Operation. The operational task was to break through the defensive line of the German 2nd Tank Army on the Nuhr River and capture the road junction in the Borisovo area. The density of artillery fire in the breakthrough sector was 60 guns per 1 linear kilometer of front. On the first day of fighting, the 197th Tank Brigade overcame 2 lines of trenches and advanced 8 kilometers deep into the enemy's defense. During this operation, a second major planning error is revealed, related to topographic support and engineering reconnaissance. The offensive was conducted using 1 to 100,000 scale maps published in 1938, which did not reflect changes in the hydrological regime of the Nuhr River and the condition of the floodplain meadows near the village of Surovtsevo. Due to heavy rains on the 24th and 25th of July, the water level rose by 1.4 meters, and the width of the swampy floodplain increased to 300 meters. The Corps Command did not conduct preliminary engineering reconnaissance of the fords. As a result, on July 27th at 3 hours 15 minutes, while attempting to ford the river on the move, 14 T-34 tanks from the 244th Tank Brigade became stuck in the bottom silt up to the turret ring. The vehicles lost mobility and turned into stationary targets for enemy anti-tank artillery. This disrupted the Corps' offensive tempo by 18 hours, allowing the German 53rd Army Corps to transfer reserves, 2 battalions of the 5th Tank Division, and occupy the key heights 212.0 and 214.8. Beginning on July 28th, the fighting took on the character of a protracted fire confrontation. The German defense relied on strong points saturated with 75mm PaK-40 guns and 88mm Flak 36 anti-aircraft guns. The density of anti-tank mines reached up to 1,800 units per 1 kilometer of front. During the period from July 26 to August 12, 1943, The Corps destroyed 124 German tanks, 89 guns of various calibers, and disabled up to 8,500 enemy soldiers. The irrecoverable losses of the Corps' materiel amounted to 72 T-34 tanks. Personnel losses: 1,420 men fell in battle or were incapacitated by wounds. By order of the People's Commissar of Defense of the USSR number 306 on October 26, 1943, for demonstrated resilience and tactical discipline, the Corps was redesignated as the 10th Guards Ural Volunteer Tank Corps. The brigades received the names 61st, 62nd, and 63rd Guards Tank Brigades, and the Motor Rifle Brigade was renamed the 29th Guards. In March 1944, the Corps under the command of Lieutenant General Rodin became part of the First Ukrainian Front. The Proskurov-Chernovitsy offensive operation began. The Corps' operational task was a deep envelopment of the right wing of the German 1st Panzer Army and an advance to the line of Kamenets-Podolsky. The offensive began on March 4, 1944, in conditions of the spring Rasputitsa, roadlessness. The depth of mud on dirt roads reached 50 to 70 centimeters. The speed of tracked columns dropped to 6 to 8 kilometers per hour. This caused a sharp increase in fuel consumption. The V234 diesel engine consumed up to 450 liters of diesel fuel per 100 kilometers of travel off-road, which exceeded the calculated norm by 2.8 times. The logistical supply columns, equipped with ZIS-5 and GAZAA wheeled vehicles, came to a complete halt at a distance of 60 kilometers from the forward units. The Corps faced the threat of a complete stop due to a shortage of fuel and lubricants. The command decided to use captured fuel seized at the Volochysk railway station, where 8 tank cars with diesel fuel, each with a volume of 50 tons, were discovered. Supply was also carried out by PO-2 aircraft of the 2nd Air Army, which over 5 days made 320 sorties, delivering 64 tons of fuel in barrels. On March 26, 1944, the forward detachments of the 61st Guards Tank Brigade, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Zhukov, burst into Kamenets-Podolsky on the move. The last retreat route for the 20 German divisions of General Huba's 1st Panzer Army was cut off. The Corps assumed an all-round defense. The density of German attacks reached up to 6 assault waves per day. In these battles, the tankers used ambush tactics. The vehicles were camouflaged in the ruins of buildings, opening fire from a distance of 300 to 400 meters at the sides of German Panther and Tiger tanks. Over 9 days of continuous defensive battles from March 28 to April 5, 1944, the Corps' units repelled attacks by superior enemy forces, destroying 54 tanks and up to 3,000 soldiers of the German Army. The 29th Guards Motor Rifle Brigade used NR-40 knives in night counterattacks to clear urban blocks, which was documented in operational reports as a means of silently eliminating enemy combat outposts in conditions of limited visibility. 680 men were removed from the Corps' personnel lists due to irrecoverable losses. July 1944. The Lvov-Sandomierz operation. The offensive began on July 14th. The Corps was part of the 4th Tank Army under the command of Colonel General Lelyushenko. The command faced the task of committing the Corps into the breakthrough through the so-called Koltov Corridor. This sector was only 6 kilometers wide and 18 kilometers long. It was swept by all types of enemy artillery from the flanking heights. The commitment of the Corps into this narrow passage began on July 17, 1944. During this maneuver, archival sources reveal a third significant discrepancy, indicating that the headquarters concealed the actual situation. In Combat Report number 048 from the Corps headquarters dated July 20, 1944, it is claimed that the Corps lost only 5 T-34 tanks to enemy artillery fire while passing through the Koltov corridor. However, analysis of the daily repair logs of the 347th Independent Repair and Recovery Battalion for the same period paints a different picture. Over 3 days, repair crews took in 26 tanks from the 62nd and 63rd Guards Tank Brigades for work. On 18 vehicles, suspension components were completely destroyed, idler wheels were torn off, and side friction clutches were deformed. The cause was the extreme operation of the equipment at maximum engine RPMs, while overcoming continuous barricades and deep artillery craters at speeds over 25 kilometers per hour under fire. The Corps headquarters intentionally classified these severe mechanical damages as routine maintenance to avoid reporting to the front command the loss of combat capability of nearly an entire tank battalion due to technical reasons. Despite the technical difficulties, on July 22, 1944, the Corps bypassed Lviv from the south and cut the communication lines of the German grouping. By the end of July 27th, the city was completely cleared of the enemy. A T-34 Guards tank from the 63rd Guards Tank Brigade, commanded by Lieutenant Dodonov, was the first to break through to Market Square and raise the red flag over the town hall building. The driver-mechanic of this tank, Marchenka, fell in battle while repelling a counterattack by German infantry, attempting to recapture the city's center using Panzerfausts. After the liberation of Lviv, the Corps marched to the Vistula River, participated in crossing the water obstacle, and expanding the Sandomierz Bridgehead. Ammunition expenditure in these battles amounted to 1.5 combat loads per tank per day. The density of Soviet artillery fire on the bridgehead reached 80 guns per kilometer of front, which helped thwart counterattacks by the German 16th and 17th Tank Divisions. January 1945. The Vistula Oder Strategic Offensive Operation. The 10th Guards Tank Corps began its offensive on January 12, 1945, from the Sandomierz Bridgehead. At this stage, the Corps was fully re-equipped with T-34-85 tanks with 85mm ZIS S-53 guns. The new modification significantly enhanced the formation's firepower. The BR-365 shell could penetrate German medium tanks at ranges up to 1,200 meters. The Corps' rate of advance reached record levels, up to 45 to 50 kilometers per day. The formation acted as the forward detachment of the 4th Guards Tank Army, bypassing enemy strongpoints and disorganizing its rear. On January 25, 1945, units of the Corps reached the Oder River in the area of the city of Steinau. The river was covered with ice 12 to 15 centimeters thick, which prevented the passage of equipment weighing 32 tons. The Corps' engineer-sapper units, under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel Popov, applied a technology of layered ice freezing using wooden log decks with a diameter of 20 centimeters. The work was carried out over 24 hours under continuous mortar fire. Across the ice crossing prepared in this manner, 84 tanks and 42 self-propelled guns were transferred to the western bank of the Oder in 12 hours. This allowed for the capture of a bridgehead and created conditions for the subsequent advance on Berlin. During the battles for the Oder, 340 personnel were put out of action, and material losses amounted to 11 tanks. On April 16, 1945, the Berlin offensive operation began. The Corps attacked from the line of the Neisse River. The enemy's defense on the approaches to Berlin was a continuous system of long-term firing points and barricades. In the city suburbs of Cottbus and Potsdam, the density of close combat anti-tank weapons, Panzerfausts, reached 60 units per 100 meters of street. To minimize losses, tank crews independently developed a technical solution. At a distance of 200 millimeters from the main armor of the turret and sides, metal mesh screens, made from bed springs and steel sheets captured from German warehouses, were welded on. When the shaped charge of a Panzerfaust hit such a screen, the detonation occurred before contact with the main armor. The shaped charge jet dissipated in the air, causing no harm to the crew or the tank's internal components. The effectiveness of this improvised method is confirmed by technical reports. Out of 42 hits by Panzerfausts on tanks of the 61st Guards Tank Brigade between April 22 and 28, 1945, complete armor penetration occurred in only 4 cases. The tactics of urban combat required close interaction between tanks and infantry. Tanks moved down streets in echelons, controlling the windows on opposite sides of buildings. Guards motor riflemen of the 29th Brigade moved directly behind the armor, suppressing points of enemy fire with PPSH-41 submachine guns and using F-1 grenades to clear basements. By May 2, 1945, the Corps had fully completed its combat mission, closing the encirclement ring around Berlin from the southwest and linking up with units of the 1st Belarusian Front. During the battles in Berlin, the Corps' units put up to 12,000 German military personnel out of action and destroyed 48 tanks and assault guns. On May 5, 1945, the headquarters of the 4th Guards Tank Army received an order to urgently direct forces to eliminate Army Group Center under the command of Field Marshal Schörner and to assist the uprising in Prague. The 10th Guards Tank Corps began its march on the night of May 6th. They had to cross the Ural Mountains on narrow roads with slopes of up to 14 degrees. The route length was 350 kilometers. The march was conducted at maximum speed. Driver mechanics drove their vehicles without headlights, using night vision devices or navigating by the taillights of the vehicles ahead. The average speed of the columns in the mountainous sections was 35 kilometers per hour. The technical wear of the running gear had by this point reached a critical level. The service life of the track links on most tanks was exhausted, with track pin wear of up to 8 millimeters. Mobile repair units of the SPM type moved within the rearguard columns, replacing broken track links directly during brief halts on the march, spending no more than 8 minutes on one replacement. On the morning of May 9, 1945, at 0400 hours, the lead tanks of the 63rd Guards Tank Brigade, under the command of Colonel Fomichev, broke into the outskirts of Prague. Tank number 242, under the command of Guards Lieutenant Ivan Goncharenko, was the first to reach the Manis Bridge across the Vltava River, where it engaged in combat with a battery of German Hetzer assault guns. During this engagement, the tank received a direct hit from a 75mm shell, and Lieutenant Goncharenko lost his life. However, the crew continued to fire and destroyed 2 enemy self-propelled guns, securing the passage of the brigade's main forces to the city center. By 12 noon, Prague was completely cleared of the remnants of German troops. Conducting a critical audit of the combat path of the 10th Guards Ural Volunteer Tank Corps through the lens of the 1944 Red Army Field Manual, PU 44, it is necessary to note key technical tactical patterns. The Corps demonstrated a high degree of autonomy and flexibility in conducting combat operations in the operational depth of the enemy's defense. The average depth of the Corps' advance in offensive operations of 1944 and 1945 ranged from 150 to 300 kilometers, which corresponded to the highest normative requirements of the Soviet military doctrine of deep operation. The high effectiveness of the unit's actions was determined by the rigid integration of tank and motor rifle subunits. The motor riflemen, transported on the armor of tanks or in Lend-Lease supplied Scout and Dodge all-terrain vehicles, ensured the immediate clearing of terrain from enemy anti-tank infantry, which reduced armored vehicle losses in close combat by 40 to 45%. At the same time, the Corps' logistical system experienced chronic overload throughout the war. The throughput capacity of Army rear roads often failed to ensure the timely delivery of ammunition and fuel, which forced the Corps Command to take risks and form mobile warehouses on automotive transport, moving directly within the combat formations of the tank brigades. This increased the vulnerability of rear structures to enemy air raids, but made it possible to maintain a high pace of the offensive. Summarizing the dry logistical results of the combat activity of the Ural Volunteer Tank Corps for the period from July 1943 to May 1945, one must refer to the final numerical indicators recorded in the unit's historical record. Over 22 months of continuous combat, the Corps fought its way over 5,500 kilometers across the territory of the RSFSR, Ukraine, Poland, Germany, and Czechoslovakia. During this time, the Corps' units destroyed or captured as trophies 1,110 enemy tanks and self-propelled artillery units, 1,100 guns of various calibers, 1,300 mortars, 2,100 vehicles, and put out of action more than 94,000 soldiers and officers of the Wehrmacht and SS troops. For the successful completion of combat missions, the Corps was awarded the Orders of the Red Banner, Suvorov Second Class and Kutuzov Second Class. A total of 54 orders appeared on the banners of the Corps' brigades and regiments. From the unit's personnel, 42,368 people were awarded orders and medals of the USSR, and 38 servicemen were awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. Irretrievable losses of the Corps' materiel for the entire period amounted to 564 T-34 tanks, which were completely written off due to the impossibility of restoration. Irretrievable personnel losses amounted to 6,420 people. The experience of forming, supplying, and combat employment of the Ural Volunteer Tank Corps demonstrated that economic mobilization on a regional scale, carried out without involving direct state budget allocations, was capable of creating a full-fledged strategic unit possessing the highest technical equipment and combat effectiveness in the conditions of total industrial war. For a detailed study of the logistical aspects of the rear services of tank armies during this period, it is necessary to examine the structure of the fuel and lubricants supply at the level of front depots. As of January 1, 1944, the supply norm for a corps with second-class fuel was 3.5 refills per operation. One full refill for a corps required 140 tons of diesel fuel and 18 tons of aviation gasoline for auxiliary motor transport. Given the remoteness of frontline depots at a distance of over 200 kilometers, the turnaround time for supply motor transport was 48 hours. This meant that to ensure continuous advancement at a speed of 30 kilometers per day, it was required to employ no fewer than 250 ZS-5 trucks solely for the interests of the Corps' fuel department. The actual number of operational vehicles in the Corps' separate fuel and lubricants delivery battalion rarely exceeded 180 units, creating a deficit of 28% of the normative requirement and forcing staff structures to use combined transportation methods. A technical audit of the Corps' repair fund shows that the main vulnerable element of the T-34 tank design from the 1943 production year remained the main clutch and the gearbox. According to reports by the Corps' senior engineer, Lieutenant Colonel Savelyev, during the Ural operation, out of 72 recorded mechanical failures, 45 cases were related to the destruction of the main clutch discs and the chipping of gear teeth on the second and third gears. The average mileage between overhauls for a tank before a major repair was only 150 to 200 engine hours, which required the deployment of repair workshops in close proximity to the front line. By 1945, this indicator had increased to 350 engine hours due to the modernization of transmission components at manufacturing plants, which directly impacted the increase in the pace of march preparation during the Vistula-Oder offensive. An analysis of ammunition expenditure during offensive operations reveals a strict correlation between the nature of the enemy's defense and the structure of rounds fired. During the breakthrough of a prepared defensive line in the Sandomierz Bridgehead area, 82% of the total expended 85mm shells were O365 high-explosive fragmentation grenades, and only 18% were BR-365 and BR-365K armor-piercing shells. The situation changed dramatically during the liquidation of the encircled grouping in the Potsdam area, where the expenditure of armor-piercing and sub-caliber shells increased to 40% due to the need to destroy permanent fortifications with reinforced concrete walls up to 600 millimeters thick, using direct fire from a distance of less than 200 meters. Special attention in archival documents is paid to the organization of communications within tank brigades. The use of 9 RM radio stations with the TUP-4 BIS tank intercom provided stable duplex communication at a distance of up to 15 kilometers while stationary and up to 8 kilometers while moving. However, when operating in the forested and swampy terrain of Silesia, the reception range was reduced to 4 to 5 kilometers, which necessitated the deployment of intermediate mobile radio posts on BA-64 armored cars. Combat experience showed that a loss of communication between the brigade commander and the forward detachment for more than 30 minutes led to a loss of control and a 25% increase in casualties from enemy flank attacks. The final reports of the Corps' political department for May 1945 note that the high level of discipline among personnel was ensured by a strict selection process during its formation. For the entire period of combat operations, not a single case of desertion or voluntary surrender was recorded in the Corps. The industrial psychology of the Ural workers, transferred to the military structure, created a unique sub-ethnic group within the Red Army's armored forces, distinguished by a pedantic attitude towards preserving equipment and the precise execution of technical maintenance regulations for weapons in field conditions. This factor became decisive in ensuring the unit's high combat readiness during the final stage of the war. Examining the tactical methods developed within the Corps, it is necessary to highlight the fire-sweeping method used when advancing through German forested areas. A tank platoon would form a line with an interval of 50 meters between vehicles. The bow DT machine guns maintained continuous fire along the forest edges and tree crowns to a depth of 200 meters along the direction of movement, while the turret guns were ready to suppress any discovered anti-tank guns. This allowed for the neutralization of Panzerfaust ambushes before the tanks reached the effective firing range for close combat. Statistics confirm that in the brigades that used this method, losses from hidden anti-tank positions in forests decreased by 3.4 times compared to the average indicators for tank armies. The organization of the evacuation service was of particular importance for increasing the survivability of armored vehicles. The 347th Battalion utilized heavy Volochysk tractors and captured half-track prime movers, which allowed for the evacuation of damaged vehicles weighing up to 45 tons from under enemy fire. During the Lviv operation, the Corps' evacuation service removed 112 tanks from the battlefield, of which 84 units were repaired by the mobile PM5 repair workshops and returned to service within 72 hours. This ensured the continuous maintenance of the brigade's combat strength without the need to draw reserves from the Stavka Reserve. The economic effect of the initiative to create the Corps lay not only in the collection of funds, but also in the optimization of technological processes at the Ural plants. The introduction of automatic submerged arc welding using the method of academician Patton at Plant 183 reduced the tank hull assembly time for the T-34 from 28 to 12 hours, lowering the production cost of a single vehicle by 24%. The saved resources were directed towards manufacturing additional sets of spare parts, which went directly to the Corps' repair units, creating a closed production front cycle within a single regional industrial complex. From the perspective of operational art, the Corps' actions as part of the 4th Guards Tank Army became a classic example of the implementation of the theory of deep offensive operations. The unit's ability to perform forced marches of up to 100 kilometers per day while maintaining the operational readiness of its equipment at 85% allowed it to breach the enemy's rear defensive lines before they could be occupied by retreating Wehrmacht units. This demoralized the German troop command and control system and led to the fragmentation of large formations into isolated pockets of resistance, which were subsequently eliminated by combined arms armies. Documents indicate that by the beginning of 1945, the Corps' provision with personal protective equipment and small arms exceeded the average frontline indicators. For every 2 soldiers of a motorized rifle brigade, there was one PPS-H-41 or PPS-43 submachine gun, which provided an automatic fire density of up to 150 rounds per minute per linear meter of the front in close combat. This allowed for the effective suppression of enemy infantry in trenches and provided reliable cover for tanks against close assault groups. The archival funds materials also contain data on the Corps' use of captured equipment. In the period from January to April 1945, the Corps' reconnaissance company temporarily operated 4 captured Panther tanks and 6 Hanomag armored personnel carriers. The use of German equipment was necessitated by the need to conduct deep reconnaissance in the enemy's rear without giving away the unit by the distinctive noise of the Soviet V-234 diesel engines. The captured equipment was written off, according to technical condition reports, immediately after the exhaustion of the captured ammunition and fuel of German standards. The historical significance of the Ural soldiers' combat path lies in demonstrating the ultimate capabilities of the Soviet industrial system during a critical period of total war. The formation, created with funds from workers, which traveled the path from Ural to Prague, proved that the high technical culture of the personnel combined with effective operational leadership, is the main factor in achieving victory over a technologically advanced enemy. The dry figures of reports and combat logs have forever recorded this unprecedented result in the history of world military art.